Welcome to the Leadership with Vision podcast by Austin Gardner. For more information and resources, visit worldevangelism.net.
Well, welcome back to Leadership with Vision. I'm here with our co-host, Jeff Bush, and this is Austin Gardner, and we are talking about crossing the cultural divide. We're talking about what it takes to leave your culture and enter into their culture, where you can help them they can hear the gospel and hear it in a way that's understandable. So, Jeff, would you like to give a greeting as we get started up today?
Well, greetings to all my friends that are out there, my missionary friends. I'm praying for those who are on deputation, headed to the field. I'm excited for those who are already on the field. And let me just say, we've mentioned a couple times now, speaking about the bicultural theme that we're speaking about. Let me just say, the test of a good missionary, I believe, is if the people where he is serving really accept him. It's one thing to write it in a prayer letter or come back to the United States and say, this is what's happening. But if the people on your field accept you, then I believe you're probably doing a good job. And so I hope this will be a help and a blessing, a challenge to you to be accepted, to be bicultural, be one of them while you're there, and then come back and help the people, encourage others to go out there and do the same exact thing.
Well, as we've discussed already, you want to be a learner. You want to be someone that goes in as a student. And the tendency is to think of yourself as an expert and somebody who can go in and teach them. And you will eventually be able to do that. But in the very beginning, you must be a learner. And the most important thing you're going to learn is the language. I don't know how you feel about it, but most people in America tend to have a bad attitude about people that don't learn English.
Yeah, for sure.
Our country is known as a melting pot. People come from all over the world, but we share a common language of English. And so the people that come here, we don't mind them remembering who they are, where they came from, but we want them to learn our language. I mean, it's a big deal to American people that people learn our language. So don't you think that the people in that other country would assume that?
We actually have pretty negative attitude towards them. We say, hey, they're in our country, they're on our turf, they better learn English. We don't want them talking their language. And sometimes we get pretty nationalistic about that. But they probably think the same thing of a missionary when they get over there. So it's pretty important we do learn the language. In fact, when we speak about language and culture, Pastor, I'd say one of the things, a person who will probably do the best is the person who probably makes the most mistakes.
That's true. I think that I want to remind you that even if they come to our country and don't learn our language, it's not as big a deal. They're not trying to win us to anything.
Yeah.
They're not trying to convert us. They're not trying to make us. They just came here to live. We go to their country with a purpose, and that purpose requires that we learn culture and communication.
So we better learn. I mean, we've got such a bigger purpose than they do coming over here just to want to make money or live a better life. We want to win people to the Lord Jesus Christ. We want to do the work of God. So we better learn the language. We better learn to jump in there and get involved in their type of life that they live in.
And so thinking positively about learning language is a crucial aspect of a learner's approach. So if you're not positive about your language learning, it is going to make it very difficult for you to learn the language. You've got to be positive. You've got to believe, I want to learn this language. I can learn this language, and it is going to be a blessing to learn this language. I like these people.
I remember so many dumb mistakes that I made when I was learning the language. Even years after I learned the language, I still made so many. I still make so many. One time I remember somebody asking about how many churches did you start? And they would say in Spanish, fundar. And I remember looking, I said, well, we fundir, which means to pretty much destroy. And so,
ruin.
Ruin. That one little letter, the AR or the IR, it means either you built or you destroyed. Right. I said, man, I destroyed a whole lot of churches. Truth is, I really did destroy a lot. But man, you could really mess things up. But when you make mistakes, hey, don't worry about it. That attitude's going to say, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let that. A lot of people, when we get laughed at or when we get mocked or we say something stupid, first thing we want to do is become like a hermit and run back in. And if we do that, we hurt ourselves. We'll never learn anymore.
So think positively. I got an email this morning from a friend of ours in China named Ben, and I thought this was good. Let me read this to you. It says, don't focus on the pain of getting started. Focus on the benefits of being done. It's the same problem you face with any kind of procrastination. You think about how uncomfortable it is to get started, and so you don't, which is why a great solution to putting things off is a dash. You make yourself work on whatever you're dreading for 10 minutes, and often you realize once you get started that it ain't so bad. Don't just think about the painful beginning. That's not fair. Think about how good you feel when you're making progress towards your goals. That's a pretty good statement.
That's excellent.
And I don't know where Ben got that, and we'll have to try to get a footnote for that. But I think that the main idea here is that you're going to learn the language better when you are positive. Think about them, love them, be excited about it, and believe that you can successfully learn another language.
So your attitude really doesn't necessarily depend on your surrounding or the problems or the mockings or however you feel. It kind of depends on what you're going to decide, what's in your heart. And so you can say, no matter how many people laugh at me, no matter how many mistakes I make, no matter how dumb I look, I am going to learn this. I've got to get it, because the big goal, the big picture is I want to win people to Christ. I want to tell other people. I want to train laborers for the gospel. So always stop, stand back, look at the big picture. Why are you learning this language? Not just to be cool or not just for the fun of it. You're learning the language. You're learning the culture because you have a goal in mind. And so always stand back and look at that goal.
Successful language learners, children and adults, begin with an underlying knowledge that a language is learned rather than taught. So they know how to take advantage of abundant resources. And those resources are the people that speak the language. Just remember this, no one can teach you the language. You will have to learn it. Back the old country people where I come from, they'd say, I'm going to learn you a thing or two. Well, you're going to have to be learned. You have to learn the language. You can't go to school. Remember, language school will not teach you the language. Language school is a tool. You must learn the language.
Something that helped me greatly was, the structure is the language school. So you do need that. You need that 8 to 12 every day or whatever it may be. You need that structure. But once you leave language school, that's when it really begins. What you do after language school, that's what really matters. In other words, if you just go to language school and you forget that, I'm done with that, and then you go home and jump on Facebook and Twitter and you watch a movie and everything, you unplug per se, it's really going to hurt you. But if you'll go out and whether it's play a sport that they play in that country or just walk around with somebody and you spend time with them, all of a sudden the things that you say, yeah, I remember that rule that we learned today. Yeah, okay, that does make sense. I am hearing that word now. So what you do after language school, that's really going to be what makes you learn or not.
The Brewsters said that language learning is depending on attitude, not aptitude. Attitude, not aptitude. And so it's really how you're feeling about it. It's the motivation that will determine how good you get in this language. Your ultimate proficiency in your second language will be how motivated you are, how good an attitude that you have.
I believe that kind of crosses lines in every aspect of life. That'll go into your marriage, and that'll go into your ministry, and that'll go into everything. Just remember, the language is only a step. You want to get all the way up the steps. Language is only one of those small steps. And so if you have the right attitude, the attitude is going to help you overcome the language. But then the next step, which is going to be starting that church or whatever it may be, that attitude will get you through all those different things. Have the right attitude. Get close to the Lord and put it in your own heart and say, God, I'm going to have the right attitude no matter what. That'll get you through a whole lot of things in life.
Remember that learning a language is a social activity. So you're going to learn a language not from a book, not from a class. You're going to learn a language being around people. So there's that attitude again. I want to be around people. I want to talk to them. I want to learn from them. I want to enjoy their presence. I want to do things with them.
Our attitude is revealed by the little things that we do for the people, the little gestures that that are almost seem to be nothing, but it's those little things that we do for the people. That smile that we put on our face, that hey, it's good, and you can even without speaking, you can have the right attitude. Without speaking, you have a good attitude towards the people, and they'll want to help you. And if they want to help you, if you become one of their friends, so many times I remember when I first arrived to Argentina, if somebody, people would help me, and if somebody wants to help you, hey, they'll pull all the strings so that you can get all the way through. If you know the right people, but you have to have the right attitude so that they will help you get all the way through.
One thing you have to remember is that you got to make mistakes. You got to make mistakes in order to learn the language. You will learn from your mistakes. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Jump out there and just start making mistakes. Remember how a kid learns the language. Remember that a small child makes lots of mistakes and gets corrected repeatedly.
I can vouch for the mistakes. I probably make more mistakes, language and in every other area of life. But I can tell you, if you will make the mistakes, if you're not scared of that, you can learn from them. Not long ago, I read a book that said it's not necessarily time that teaches you. We all say that time will teach you, or experience teaches you. And the book said, no, not experience, but evaluated experience. So it's not just the mistakes that teach you, but those evaluated mistakes. So when you make the mistakes, if you look at them and say, I'm going to become better because of that. I'm not going to say it like that, or I'm not going to do it like that, or whatever. You make those mistakes, you learn from them, you will become much better as a result of it.
The problem is that you can't learn if you are isolated. If you isolate yourself, which will be because of a bad attitude, which will be because of pride, which will be because of fear, which is a form of pride, you will not learn the language. You have got to get out among the people, and you've just got to take the chance that they're going to laugh at you, or people are going to make fun of you, or whatever, because you've got to work at being around people.
So the bad attitude, it kind of repels the people, It's just like putting on that off the spray, for the bugs. All of a sudden you put it on and, man, they don't want anything to do with you. Well, same thing. You put on the bad attitude, and the people in the country in which you're living, they want nothing to do with you. They'll clam up, they'll close up, they'll turn you off. And that bad attitude comes by the little critical statements you say, or, hey, man, we don't do that in America, or this is so weird. All those attitude things, man, it repels people from wanting to help you or to be around you.
A missionary told me in Peru, when you reject the food, you reject the culture. When you reject the culture, you reject the people. And in a lot of ways, if you hang around people, you're liable to be eating or drinking something that's not what you're used to.
So, I'm sorry, Pastor. So not to overstate it, but just remember, friend, it's not your skill in the language. It's not your competence. It's not everything that you know. It's your heart. It's your attitude. If you want to learn it, if you have the right attitude, you will learn it. You will get it down.
And
you'll be accepted. Oh, man, will they love you.
And when they love you, they'll listen. And when they listen, they'll get saved. And you have some bad attitudes and some misconceptions and some false attitudes about their culture. You tend to think of them as being inferior. You won't admit that because it's not politically correct to admit it, but you tend to think of them as not being as intelligent as you are. You tend to think of them as not being as advanced as you are. You tend to think of them as not doing things like the right way, and that's going to cause you to have an attitude that will make them not want to listen to you.
There's a quote, I don't remember exactly who said it, but it says, the single most important area of your life and your ministry will be in the realm of attitudes. So make sure you have the right attitude.
Now, most adults, they subconsciously resist the idea of becoming childlike to learn a language, but you have to. So our pride won't let us humble ourselves enough to be a child, to be taught, to be corrected. I arrived in Mexico. I was right at 31 years of age, I guess. I was born in 1954, and I arrived there in 1987. So I was 32 years old, and I would turn 33 that year. And I'd already been in the ministry like 13 or 14 years since I was 19. And here I am, all of a sudden being treated like a child. They laughed at me. I was loud and fun, playing and cutting up with everybody. And so even the guy who was assistant pastor of the Mexican leading and singing, he would right in front of everybody, he'd say, he'd write on the blackboard so I know when to stand up, or he'd point at me and tell me to stand up. But that was good, actually.
Being humiliated stinks. It's horrible, but it can be a great teacher if you'll let it. So have the right attitude when you're humbled, when you're mocked or laughed at or whatever.
Our attitudes are revealed by little things we do, little gestures that cost almost nothing. So just remember, even the way you move your eyebrows, the smile or the frown, the hesitation or the anticipation, all of those things are going to let the people know if you are happy about being with them. If you will drink that drink, eat that food, share what you have, all of that will scream out to them.
Almost all my friends that would be listening to this would be preachers, and all of us as preachers, we've stood up in front of a church and we've watched people. You look at some people and some people are sleeping, some people are yawning. And you could always tell people when they're interested in you. Boy, their eyes are open. They're sitting at the edge of the chair. They're looking at you, and you're like, these are the people I want to preach to. You also see other people that are like, you say something, they roll their eyes, or they just like nod, or they look away. They're disinterested. Well, remember, all your body, your corporal language, how you look and your gestures of your body, that says something about your attitude. So remember, when you're with the people and they're talking to you, make sure you have the right attitude. Look at them, sit up straight, smile at them, because remember, you roll your eyes, you look like, what in the world are you talking about? They'll quit talking to you. They quit talking to you, you don't have much of a chance in learning. So your gestures are super important.
Now remember this, you have got to be interested in these people. So that means you need to be there in the fun times and the bad times, in their joys and in their sorrows, at their weddings, at their funerals. You've got to really care about these people. You cannot be a professional preacher who descends from the clouds, from the heavenlies, preaches his message and ascends back up. You can't even be the preacher in America who's inaccessible. He doesn't want people calling his cell phone. He acts like he's too busy for people. If you do that, you will not make an impact on these people.
Another thing that we could state when we're talking about this biculturalism, by getting over there, is we have to remember, as a missionary, as an American, as someone, an outsider, we are guests. And a guest is somebody who is reserved. He's grateful. He's discreet in what he says and what he does. We have to have that attitude of being a guest in their country, someone who is dependent on their host for many things. What would you like to do? Do you take off the shoes in your house? Okay, I'll take off mine, even if it's not customary for me. Do you eat like that? Okay, then I'll do that. You are a guest. Too often missionaries, they've acted as if they were, they're the teacher, they're the schoolmaster, and the nationals, they're less, they're inferior, they're the children. It should not be like that. You are a guest going into their country on their turf.
Exactly. Very well put. Let's remember this, how good I am in the language and what's going to be important. It's my attitude. I cannot be inconsiderate. I can't be condescending. I can't be critical. I can't be indifferent. I have to be willing to love these people and express it. The most important thing is that attitude, and being a guest is so important. Being the guy who realizes, I'm in your house. I'm in your house. You're not in my house. I need to adapt to you. You don't need to adapt to me. They're not different. I'm different because I'm in their country. I'm the one that's different. And so much of that has got to be learned.
I guess another point we could maybe talk on, even on being a guest, but we could talk about respect. And, as a missionary, I think we've got to work on this in our attitude. Anybody, we look down at people, but it's not just enough to love the people. You have to learn to respect them. And respect is something that they deserve. And so you got to be careful to think, instead of thinking they don't deserve my respect. Oh, yes, they do. You are on their turf. If you can learn to respect them, they'll respect you. You'll have that mutual respect. They'll help you and they'll love you as a result, just because of the respect that you have for them.
I can remember when I got to Mexico, I had never known such a courteous people. Americans don't tend to be, in my opinion, as courteous as I found the Mexicans. You and I both know that you can never let anybody be behind your back. And when somebody wanted to walk into a room where others were, they said, with your permission. And when you were sitting in a circle and you wanted to leave, you asked permission again, and the other people gave you their permission. They even have a formal way of speaking that shows respect to their elders. It's very important to realize these are people I can love and respect.
Pastor, a couple of years ago, I returned back to Argentina to visit, and I remember I walked up. There was a policeman standing on the corner. I walked up to the policeman right away, and I was going to ask him, "Hey, where's such and such street?" And I said, "Sir, where's such and such street?" I just went straight to my, the question that I had, and he looked at me and he stopped and he said, "Well, good morning to you too." And he looked at me, and I thought, "What in the world?" I just broke a cultural rule. The cultural rule is, hey, I'm a person. I'm not just a machine. Respect me. Say hello. Ask how I'm doing, and then ask the question. In so many countries, they are so respectful to people. I've seen countries where they'll lean down to say hello, almost like they're bowing. Other countries where if they're going to shake their hand, they'll hold on to their elbow to shake hand, to show I respect you. Other people, they'll stop and they'll ask about different things before they ask a question, or they won't point. In a lot of countries, they don't point. Like an American, they'll say, "Hey, look at me. Who are you talking about?" And you point to that guy. They say, what a lack of respect to point to somebody. That's what you do to an animal. So they'll maybe use their lips or their nose, or they'll look over with their eyes at somebody. They're so respectful in other countries. And hey, if you're going to go on their turf, you better learn to respect. Do what they do.
And that means I got to learn to what is different. How do they do things? I need to think like they think. I can remember, of course, this is a sad statement, but I'm a big guy, and when I eat cookies, I can pop a whole cookie in my mouth. And so some Peruvians were at our house, and we gave them a cookie, and they would take 10, 15, 20 bites to eat one cookie. And I said, we got more cookies. You don't have to eat that so slowly. And they said, well, we are saboreando. We are enjoying the flavor. And they were basically saying, you don't enjoy the flavor. You just swallow the thing. And that was true. But I've never had to worry about, is there another cookie?
If you respect people by just the little things of imitating them, that shows respect. Hey, man, I want to be like you. And why do you do what you do? And asking in the right way. Could I do it a little bit better? Or could I, react a little bit differently? And showing that respect to people, no matter what their age is, no matter, what their status. It doesn't matter that you're making more money than them or you speak English. You just respect the people, and you'll go so much farther in ministry.
People want to know that you value them. And so that's really been the point of today's podcast, that I value them, that I think highly of them. I respect them. I'm a guest. I have the right attitude. I'm learning their language. I'm doing everything I can to show the respect due to these people. And so I would like to challenge you to consider how important all of this is. You've got the first 2 years of ministry, and you're going to say, well, I need to be starting a church. And I'm going to say to you that starting a church is got to be preceded by learning a language, learning a culture, learning to love the people, learning to respect the people, or you're not going to be able to build that relationship. You got to understand how they feel about stuff. For example, what's it like when one of your animals dies, even if it's just a goat or a buffalo or whatever it is? What's it like, things that are so cheap to us are not important, are a big deal to them.
If you can cross that cultural line and learn to respect them and love them and, be that guest, all of a sudden people will open up to you. And when people open up to you, you have access to get inside of their heart to teach them, to help them learn the ways of God. Listen, we put all of our culture to the side. We're not worried about, hey, I'm an American, this is the way we do it. No, forget all that. We are citizens of heaven. And so we cross that cultural line by saying, you know what, it's not important to me what an American does. It's important to me what a Christian does. So here's why. And I respect them and I love them. And because I do, they'll open their heart. Ministry is so much better. Life is so much better. When, for example, in marriage, your wife doesn't give you a kiss because she has to give you a kiss. It's much better when she gives you a kiss because she wants to give you a kiss. And it's so much better that you have people in church, in the ministry, because they want to learn. They're there because they want to do more. They'll open their hearts and they'll do so much more because they want to, not because they have to. So let's cross those cultural lines so that we can do more in ministry.
I hope that you're understanding the importance of this. I hope you're not taking it lightly. Hope you're understanding the great investment that's required. Hope you remember that it took Jesus, or he didn't take him, but he gave 30 years of his life to being a Jew before he preached to them. So I challenge you to consider the importance of this. Well, it's been our honor and our privilege to talk to you today, and we are so blessed that you would take the time to listen. And I'd like to remind you of where to get more material. So, Brother Jeff, if you don't mind, tell them where they can get more material.
Well, if you'll jump online, worldevangelism.net, there's so many blog posts, there's so many articles and things that I think can help you specifically as a missionary, as a minister of the gospel. There's so many things that help. So that'll be worldevangelism.net. Jump on there, you'll find so much information.
Well, we're glad that we have the opportunity to talk to you. We'd welcome any comments. You can go to worldevangelism.net and leave the comment. We'll try to answer those comments and get back to you. It's a blessing to talk to you. Thank you from both of us. God bless you very much, and we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
You've been listening to Leadership with Vision by Austin Gardner. Visit worldevangelism.net to discover more podcasts and useful articles.